It's time to look at the League of the Fans.
If you think football's about expensive signings, rich owners and Amazon documentaries, then our next league isn't for you. But if you think it's about packed stadiums, singing for 90 solid minutes and feeling like you're part of your club, then the Bundesliga might just be the best in the world.
You haven't really seen football or lived football when you haven't been to a German game, in a Bundesliga game, honestly.
Nico Heimer is a Bundesliga expert at OneFootball. We hashed out the good and the bad of the Bundesliga.
There is no fan culture that is comparable to the Bundesligas in the top 5 leagues. That's just a fact.
Nico and I will tell you what makes the Bundesliga the best of Europe's top 5 leagues and what makes it the worst of the whole bunch. Let's start with the good.
Wherever you go in the world, clubs talk about how important the fans are. But in many cases, they're actually more interested in the fans' wallets. But German fans get a much better deal. While most leagues have long since turned to foreign investors in a bid to get ahead of the game, most German clubs still feel a sense of duty to their local community. It all comes down to one sacred rule, 50+1.
Germany still hasn't sold out the football in a way that happened in other leagues. German football clubs are actually still clubs. They're not companies and they're not owned by people.
The rule ensures clubs hold a majority of their own voting rights.
That means no investor can come in from the outside and start running the club however they want. It means that club officials, who themselves answer to the club's members, have control over how things are run.
The members of the club can decide about important questions when it comes to football too. Well, not the lineup, not transfers, but things like, are we going to extend the stadium?
It means the fans won't get abused just so some billionaire can line his already stuffed pockets with a working man or woman's hard-earned cash.
From my perspective, this is what football is about, because otherwise it's just 11 dudes running around that get paid an insane amount of money and you have no connection to them whatsoever.
Of course, that makes football a completely different experience for German fans. For one thing, it makes them much more likely to come and watch their team every week.
Look, the Bundesliga defines itself by the amount of fans that get to go to the stadium. It's always sold out.
Last season, Bundesliga stadiums averaged more fans per game than any of the other top leagues, at more than 44,000.
That's almost double the average attendance at Ligue 1 matches. And frankly, why wouldn't you be a regular at your team's ground?
Prices are low. Even the most expensive seat at Bayern Munich will cost you just €750 for the season.
The likes of Barcelona, Real Madrid and the top clubs in England are all way higher. It also helps to create some of the best atmospheres in Europe. OK, maybe not at a Hertha game, but at most stadiums the atmosphere is intense.
The yellow wall at Dortmund is famous for the noise it makes, but you could travel all over the country and find the same thing wherever you go.
Honestly, I was shocked when I went to Wembley last year for a Champions League game, the Dortmund game, and there were like, I don't know, what is it, like 95,000 people, and it was more or less silent. All you could hear were like 3,000 Dortmund fans.
And finally, it makes the fans more loyal than anywhere else.
A case in point, this year Hamburg got relegated. For the first time since the Bundesliga was founded, the club is not playing top-flight football.
So how did the fans react? They bought more season tickets than ever before. That's what it means to feel like more than just a customer.
No fan, no German, like proper football fan, would ever trade success for having an investor.
In many ways, the Bundesliga is football like it was back in the good old days. But has it also become stuck in a rut?
And is there some way it's the worst of the top 5 leagues?
Let's take a look at the problems facing the Bundesliga. Firstly, that lack of investment is really starting to bite when it comes to Europe.
The reason why we're discussing opening up and getting rid of the 50+1 rule is because we see we lack the success.
It looked so different in 2013 when Bayern and Dortmund faced off in the Champions League final.
It was a sign of how strong the Bundesliga had become. Jurgen Klopp's exciting Dortmund and the imperious Bayern side of Jupp Heynckes at the top of the European tree. But since then, in the last 5 seasons, only Bayern have made it to the semi-finals. And even they've been embarrassed at times by the likes of Real and Barca. Increasingly, German clubs are struggling to cope with the dual challenges of domestic and European football. Why? It all comes down to money. Clubs just don't have enough of it to build a squad capable of fighting on two fronts.
And whenever a team sparkles on the big stage, clubs in Spain and England tempt their best players away with huge offers.
Look at Leroy Sané, who's one of Germany's biggest talent. Look at Emre Can. Look at all the guys that play abroad. Why do they play abroad? Because they can earn so much more money.
And if they don't do it, Bayern will. And speaking of Bayern, the Bundesliga has a serious problem when it comes to competitiveness.
The Bavarians have now won the last 6 titles, and few expect their crown to slip this season. Last term, they went through an early crisis while Dortmund flew out of the blocks.
And yet they still won the league at an absolute canter.
Bayern is so powerful. They have done basically everything right in the last 40 years. They have so much more money. They play in a different league than the rest of the Bundesliga.
No offence, Bayern, but it's getting really, really boring. The Bundesliga always has plenty of good stories, but nothing gets people going like an exciting title race. Unfortunately, it's been a long time since we had one of those in Germany.
It was Werder Bremen in 03-04. It was Stuttgart in 07. It was Wolfsburg in 09. Then it was Dortmund 11 and 12. You always had that room to dream you can win something. This might be our year. Now that's gone.
With Bayern overpowering everyone with their huge finances and the promise of trophies, it's harder than ever for most clubs to keep hold of their best players.
Last year's runners-up Schalke lost arguably their best player to the champions, and Bayern didn't even have to pay them a penny for Leon Goretzka's services.
It's hard to see the landscape changing unless other clubs get major investment. And the only places that's happening are the, shall we say, non-traditional clubs.
The likes of RB Leipzig seem to be one of the few clubs who could eventually challenge Bayern.
But that would be a bitter moment for German traditionalists. Clubs like Leipzig, Hoffenheim and Wolfsburg are among the few who circumvent the 50+1 rule. So, is 50+1, the very thing that's keeping German football's soul comparatively pure, actually harming the competitiveness of the league?
We are honestly at the edge. This rule has been discussed every week. That's the reason why you gotta hope for the Bundesliga that Bayern stumbles this season or maybe next season, because I'd say 3 more titles and the rule is gone.
Does Germany have to choose between prioritising the fans and competing with the other top leagues? Maybe not. For one thing, German clubs have never been that big in Europe.
If you take away Bayern, Bundesliga sides have won a grand total of 2 European Cups.
So the current state of affairs is not exactly a catastrophic drop in form. And there's no guarantee that opening up to investors would actually make the Bundesliga more even. It could just end up making Bayern even richer.
German football has been very sane compared to other leagues. I just really hope that at some point we're going to get the benefit in Germany from staying sane, not going with the hype, not going with the trend, and saying, our system works, let's keep it that way.
So what makes the Bundesliga the best and the worst of the top 5 leagues? It's second to none when it comes to fan culture. But while it's the best league for supporters, it's the worst for title races. Nowhere in Europe is the battle for top spot less interesting.
So the 50+1 rule lives on, for now. And as long as it does, Germany will remain a uniquely special place for fans. But with German clubs struggling to compete in Europe and the Bundesliga becoming an annual procession for Bayern, Germany may soon come to a crossroads. Stick with what makes the Bundesliga, or twist and hope that the rising tide of investment lifts all boats. The wrong choice may ruin everything. No pressure, Germany.